All right, guys, this is Chad Robo Show with the Robo Show, and I had been on a kind of hiatus from episodes, so I appreciate everyone waiting, but we're coming back with a good guest. Again, I was out because of being away in Ukraine and working on evacuations rescues there with an amazing team from both Mighty Oaks Foundation and Save Our Allies. And we're still doing a lot of work there. I'm home on break right now, and so coming back with a new episode. And but I'm pretty excited about this one. A fellow Marine from the Special Operations community, Fred Galvin, who served 27 years in the Marine Corps, starting as enlisted at 17 years old. We have a lot in common there. I want to ask when he gets on what year did he start? Because I'm thinking we might be around the same generation. But he served in Iraq, Kuwait, Afghanistan. He was part of the Special Operations community, has a Bronze Star, and he since then he's done a lot in the nonprofit world for veterans community and veterans families. And he's written an incredible book. I haven't read the whole thing, but from what I read so far, I'm just eager to get in and complete it. It's called A Few Bad Men, which if you're familiar with our beloved Marine Corps, A Few Good Men. And so there's a few bad men in the Marine Corps, and you can take that either way. There's not always good people in any great organization, but there's also in the Marine Corps, there's a few badasses in the Marine Corps, and Fred's one of them. So Fred, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Chad. I appreciate having me as your guest.
Yeah, so I think the audience on this show will really resonate with the story you have in the book. But before we get into the book, first I want to ask you, what year did you go in the Marine Corps?
1987.
1987. So I came in '93, so you're a little ahead of me. But when you've seen 27 years, I'm like, man, we're probably close to the same generation. And I don't know if you know, my father was a Marine, and both my sons are Marines, so big Marine Corps family here. But yeah, we probably were around the same places near the same times, nonetheless. But can you tell us a little bit before we start in the book about your Marine Corps career? What led you? I'm always interested. What led people to the Marine Corps? Lots of options, not serving in the military or the other branches. But what led you to the Marine Corps, and a little bit about your Marine Corps career?
Real quickly, our family went to some of the Revolutionary War battlefields when I was 10 years old, and we're from Kansas, so I had never seen anything like that before in my life. Unfortunately, the schools really didn't cover that in depth, but we went there, and several of the park rangers at like the winter encampment at Valley Forge and Yorktown battlefield. You're hearing how these American soldiers, fought against like tremendous odds, or in the case like Valley Forge, just froze and very hungry, is miserable, and they overcame that. And me having been involved in martial arts, that resonated in my head. Like, gosh, man, these guys were. I couldn't imagine being in these types of conditions, and people fighting. And then it wasn't until high school that there was this fellow student that mentioned, "Hey, if you really want the action, the Marines, they're the first to fight, and if that's what you want to do, you got to join the Marine Corps." So actually, that guy, he was a lot of talk because on spring break that year, he went down to one of these spring break locations and smoked some dope, and then the recruiter said, "Hey, you your ship date's not for like a couple months, but you can take his and you can leave like a week after graduating high school." So I was I was like, man, that's too good to be true. And then there I was, boot camp in San Diego, um, which I enjoyed, and that ultimately led me to. I remember on a workup, I took the first Recon Battalion in doc, ran into a guy from my high school that was. We were both corporals at that time, and ran into him in the chow hall. He said, "Hey, you got to take this in doc. You got to get over here to First Recon." So I did, and it ended up that my company chain of command thought I was trying to get out of that deployment. Uh, kind of got a bad reputation for that. And then anyway, we went on to deployment to Desert Shield, Desert Storm on the USS Tarawa with Regimental Landing Team 5. Came back. Um, our company XO still looked at me like I was disloyal. And anyway, that led me to go on. Uh, got out of the Marines, went to college, and started as a broker for 2 years selling stocks, and then I wanted to get back in the Marines. Marine Corps was downsizing, couldn't get back in as enlisted Marine. I was a sergeant at that time, so they didn't need that many of those ranks. So I went to uh, applied for a commissioning package and got accepted and went in as an officer and became an infantry officer and went back to California again. So, and then got into force reconnaissance, served at both in Okinawa, what was 5th Force Recon, and then 1st Force Recon in Camp Pendleton, and then Marine Special Operations Command. So, and then I retired in 2014.
Yeah, we definitely crossed some paths there. When you went over to First Recon Battalion, did you happen to get in docked or go through RIP with Fitzgerald, Chief Fitzgerald?
No, I know who Chief Fitzgerald is. We didn't serve together. The and I never went to First Recon Battalion. I just took the NDOC there, and then when I was a lieutenant and I was stationed there in First Marine Division, I took the NDOC at First Force Recon Company, and then due to availability, monitor the assignments officer said, "Hey, um, you can wait like a year," and I knew that would require another deployment, which at that time you're kind of senior, and with officers it's kind of like a game because you have a narrow window to execute that. So I went over to, he said, I can send you to Okinawa if you want to be a Force Recon platoon commander there. And I went over to 5th Force Recon. And eventually um, there was a shooting incident that happened in 2002 out on range 131 where a Marine shot a role player. They went from live fire combat drills to blank fire raid, and uh, a Marine role player was accidentally shot due to not proper inspections. But anyway, they relieved those in the chain of command, and they brought me in from at that time I was stationed in Yuma, and I served in at First Force Recon as a platoon commander there from '02 to '06.
Right on. Some good billets. So what inspired you to write the book A Few Bad Men? And I guess before you really get into it, can you give some clarity on the title? I'm just super interested in the title.
So, like you said, Chad, one of the monikers in the Marines, and there's several of them, like Always Faithful, the First to Fight, and the Marine Corps used to have this recruiting poster. Probably when both you and I were getting in, it said we are looking for a few good men. And obviously, there's a movie called A Few Good Men, and which is based on a true story. This is also nonfiction, and so, and what we mean by the title is the Marine Corps is a great organization, and Marines have fought for almost 250 years, protecting our nation's liberties and our freedoms that our Constitution provides. However, there are a few bad men, and what this book describes, it's not at all a pity party. It's about it focuses on some events that occurred in Afghanistan. We were the first Marine Special Operations company that deployed, and they sent us into Afghanistan. And while we were there on one of these missions right next to the Afghan-Pakistan border, we were going in to do a tribal leader engagement. And as we were going into the village, we saw the atmospherics had changed from when we passed through earlier that day. And basically everybody's lined up on the side of the road. And then we got hit with a car bomb. And then we started taking action uh, from a vehicle that was firing with some jihadists, fully automatic fire from our left. Quickly aimed, killed them. Another on the right side of us in a dry riverbed, there's dismounted forces bounding at us, firing. And of course, we aimed in, killed them. And then, but there was a vehicle that got dragged across the road, and then a mob that formed at us while we were getting hit with sniper fire. And so, but we quickly made our report, and then we decided not to do the tribal leader engagements. Obviously, we were in a town that had bad sentiment, and we knew that there was 4 suicide bombers in that town. That's our reason for going in there, but we didn't really want to stick around and get blown up by all 4. So when we returned to base, the reports that already came out on the BBC that we had killed women and children, and then the numbers continued to go up and up and up, and this was the largest number of falsely alleged Afghan civilians who were killed from direct fire weapons, and then that led to a criminal investigation, and a trial focused on the 7 of us. Ultimately, myself and one other Marine, we were the ones that were the defendants in what was the longest courtroom trial in Marine Corps history, in which we were exonerated. However, there's a lot of details, and I don't want to do a spoiler, but the book does describe how the convening authority, and the colonel, who was the senior officer, basically like the judge in our case, would continue to go to classified session every time we'd have a defense witness, anyone with exculpatory evidence that was exonerating us. They would remove the media. I mean, this was a gun battle, Chad. So again, this is not locations of submarines at sea or the orbits of satellites. This is street fight with guns. And so the media kept getting escorted out. And although the jury heard the whole story and we were acquitted, the media heard one side of the story, and essentially that is, as we know, let's call it for what it is. It's censorship. And when you see what's happening in the military with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, people trying to whitewash this and say everything was great, and the American public, they know better because they saw what really happened in many cases, not all the fine details of the withdrawal from Afghanistan or the retreat. But in this case, in the book, A Few Bad Men, that's the most senior leaders in the Marine Corps and in the special operations community decided, and this was intentional, we're going to cover this up. We've seen this, unfortunately, when, just like in the Pat Tillman case, things don't go so pretty. Combat, it's not a noun, it's a verb, and it's things happen that you don't have total control of, and they're not always pretty. But when people decide, hey, this is how we're going to sell this to the American public, that's especially in a case where it ruins people's professional careers. You have like destruction of future opportunities. That's the title, A Few Bad Men. Is it exposes, this isn't Fred Galvin's hearsay or my version of it. This is what these guys said in court under sworn testimony. Now, that's what we took 11 years to get declassified. That we should have never been declassified. And much of what also those leaders said was said publicly to the press during criminal investigations. So it's literally their words verbatim. It's not here or there. Sorry.
What year did the incident happen? And what year did the court case take place?
Okay, we formed the very first Marine Special Operations Task Force in 2006. We deployed to Afghanistan in 2007. There was a investigation that lasted 9 months, and then we went into trial from the 7th to the 29th of January in 2008. And conveniently for the Marine Corps, they decided to wait to deliberate for 4 months. And there's few periods where the Pentagon goes down to a small skeleton staff for long weekends. And on Memorial Day, 4 days after the court, 4 months, 4 entire months, they decided to use non-legal terms. And we have been in, sometimes the first sergeant will bring you in to hear a non-judicial punishment or some type of military justice case, and you hear that there's 3 types of legal terms used. It's you're either innocent, you're guilty, or it's dismissed. And our case, it's a war crimes trial, and they said we acted appropriately. So they dumped this on a Friday night, 4 months. I can't prove that was unintentional. It just seems very coincidental that they waited 4 entire months for the largest number of alleged civilians killed, and they didn't use any legal terms. They just said that we acted appropriately, and that led to further riots in Afghanistan, and everybody saying that we got away with mass murder. When that's out there in the New York Times and the Washington Post and all over the international media, good luck on trying to get a job afterwards. And that's kind of what led to the professional destruction. But this book is about overcoming that and fighting a long-term campaign and having something greater than yourself my faith in God is what allowed us to fight and win. This is a book people don't believe in miracles. Well, read this book and you'll see, like, how come this guy went through 2 court cases? And at that time, the Marine Corps had a 96% conviction rate. I mean, not just combat, but in the courtroom, which is what a lot of this book is, mixture of both. It's like a cross between American Sniper and A Few Good Men. So if you like action, you like nonfiction courtroom drama, sort of like A Few Good Men had. This is a book that I encourage the readers, and now that also has audio version, and it's got pictures. Marines, we like pictures.
We like
Uh,
pictures, yeah. Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Can't wait to finish it. And, so I'm guessing what inspired you to write it was getting the truth out and telling the story of overcoming. And I'm a strong person of faith too. I believe God's hand has orchestrated most of the, if not all of the obstacles I've faced in my life. God has orchestrated ways for me to overcome those and give me the strength to overcome those, and ultimately make good out of terrible things. And I'm gathering that's what this book is to you.
yes, it is.
What do you think the biggest takeaway for a reader would be from this book?
One of the biggest takeaways, and I believe you definitely can relate to this, Chad, and I'm sure once you finish it, you'll see in the end, just because your background as a fighter is when you look at an enemy or a situation in life, whether that could be cancer, somebody having a job, whether they're fired, or a job, with COVID, a lot of jobs went away. A lot of people face similar but different types of circumstances. And it's to have a faith and a mindset that, you will fight, you will use every cell in your body, every ounce of energy to attack. And you have to have that long-term vision that this is, it may be painful, it may be ugly, it may be discouraging, but you have to have that mindset of a leader that you will continue to advance and you will continue to hit and strike until the situation improves. And that sometimes, like in this case, this happened 15 years ago. The Marine Corps has still, people say, well, the Pentagon did finally come public and clear you. That is true. However, along that long road, we had an act of Congress, bipartisan and bicameral support. They were, they approached the Commandant of the Marine Corps with a bill and, asking to completely clear our names. And the Commandant nor any Marine general officer in uniform has ever said it, made any type of changes. It's still, to them, we acted appropriately. The ones that exonerated us were senior civilian officials in the Department of the Navy, wrote a 12-page long, scathing, very specific of what our Marines did and did not do. And that was great that they had the courage to do that. And the whole moral of the story is when you're a leader or you're personally involved in yourself with a fight, you have to have that mindset of you cannot give up. It's painful. It may look like there's no chance of winning, and sometimes I don't encourage people to fight in a situation that it is absolutely impossible. But this book is about modern day miracles and how you have to have that mindset and have to have organizations. In this case, the people that attacked us, the military, the media, even congressmen, those same organizations. We formed, a campaign with lawyers, media, members of Congress, and the people, lobbying their members of Congress. This has to get fixed, and all those people allowed us to fight and to win.
This episode of the Robo Show is brought to you by iron-neck.com. Iron Neck is the world's #1 neck strengthening device. You guys don't know, in 2006, I was in Afghanistan and broke my neck. And if you want to read about that story, a crazy story of how I broke my neck, it's in my book, and Unfair Advantage. You can go and check it out. But coming back from Afghanistan, after that's when I had all my big MMA fights, and my neck, and the VA wanted to do fusion, and I refused to do fusion, and I just opted to just strengthen my neck, keep my neck strong. So since, man, all these years fighting through all my fights in MMA and jiu-jitsu, I've always been very important that I keep the muscles of my neck strong, because the bones in my neck are broken off, and so I don't have that stability. And so neck strengthening has always been a very important thing to me. I've always just improvised ways to do it, using body weight, using different kind of improvised things that I'd make up. But now I don't have to do that anymore, because I have an R neck device, which helps me to not only strengthen my neck, but do it in a safe way. The way the device works is it's on a rotator, so as you move your neck, the point of where the tension is actually moves around your head, and so super effective and safe way to strengthen your neck. And whether you have a neck injury or not, I think in sports or just in life, it's really important to have a good, strong neck. If your neck's strong, your hips are strong, your body's going to be strong. And so check it out, iron-neck.com. If you enter promo code Robichaux, Robichaux, my last name, you'll get 10% off. And I'm really doing this because I love it myself, and I want everybody out there, especially those with bad necks, to be able to take care of themselves. And so I really thought it was a great product to push out and partner with. And these guys are pretty awesome. They're a Texas-based company. iron-neck.com. Yeah, as I read your bio, and the readers, when you read Fred's bio, it's just, he's really amazing history. And me coming out of special operations community, I mean, you really do have amazing history, and we're in the right place. It seems like you got to be in a lot of the right units at the right time too. But one of the things, you have 49 medals. In the Marine Corps, we call this, for those listening and not in the Marine Corps, we call it a salad bowl. You have quite the salad bowl on your chest there. I mean, 49 medals for the Marine Corps specifically is a lot, guys, for those listening. And so I have to ask, like, what's your favorite, not favorite might be the right word, but what's the award that's most significant to you, and why? What's the story behind it?
And honestly, and to be clear, because some of those awards were awarded repetitively. If you get a Navy Commendation Medal, you get a third or fourth one. So it's not 49 separate ones for those listening. It's not like I'm some kind of Mexican general with it's ridiculous. But so the most important is we deployed, and I was a platoon commander in 2005 on one of these deployments to Iraq. It was a great opportunity because we just had previously, with that platoon, did a previous deployment into Iraq, but on this deployment, it was in the height of the insurgency. This was 4th Platoon at 1st Force Recon Company, and just awesome, the most talented, the most committed Marines that I'd served with in combat. And the uniqueness was, during that time, that was the height of the insurgency. So the Mujahideen was very organized, and if you were out there trying to do stupid things with raids, reconnaissance missions, I remember, unfortunately, an infantry battalion, the sniper team, they got captured. Taliban did some really heinous things to them up by the town of Hit, and but that deployment meant a lot with those guys. That's at the end of that deployment is when they promoted me to major. It was just, that was my time. But I had spent 6.5 years as a Force Recon platoon commander, which is not the normal path. And so they awarded me a Bronze Star because we'd done tons of raids in Iraq and a lot of reconnaissance missions. And they brought all our guys home alive, which was huge. And, we had replaced a platoon from 2nd Force at that time that had 22 out of 24 of their Marines that were wounded or killed. And it was a dangerous time at that time.
Yeah. So looking at your career, you've had some good experiences, some bad experiences. You've been through a lot. The political climate over the last 27 years, and since you and I joined the Marine Corps, has changed quite a bit. My youngest son just ended 53 years of consecutive service for the Marine Corps for our family, and 82 years of service to our country over the COVID vaccine, because he refused to get the COVID vaccine. So the political climate of the military has changed. It's people are trying to decide, should I serve, should I not serve, should my children serve under this administration? All these questions are, being asked in our country right now, which is really scary to me. It was even a tough thing for me with my son leaving the Marine Corps over the vaccine, because our nation needs warriors to stand up regardless of who's in the White House. So what's your take on that? Why should people still serve the Marine Corps, still serve in the military, despite the constant changes and the deterioration of our culture and climate? I kind of loaded that question. Like, don't want to make you assume that you agree with me on the digression of our culture, but
yeah, it's a very, very, very important question, because like you said, Chad, we have to have warriors. If we don't, I mean, you and I have served, and we realize how important and our national defense is. It's critical. We have now more than ever countries like Russia who they want additional power, and they're trying to test it. And if we just not just are perceived as weak, but we militarily are weak, and we are, I served for 27 years, and then in the last 4 years, I work for the Marine Corps right now as a civilian, and I see a lot of these changes, and it's discouraging. And it's sort of like, when we were both serving on active duty in uniform, if a leader, whether that's your officer in charge, or your non-commissioned officer that's making a call, if it's something that, hey, they're doing something that, maybe they're exhausted, maybe that's just how the system is leaning, you can't just quit and say, hey, no way. I do believe, there has to be a strong voice from the people saying, hey, boss. And I did that. So one of the things in A Few Bad Men is this wasn't just one ambush in Afghanistan on a separate deployment. And I'd like to mention this. We went, after we were cleared, I went back to Afghanistan on another deployment with 3rd Recon Battalion, and the commanding officer, I was his operations officer. A platoon got involved in a serious ambush. They got enveloped. The battalion commander was being extremely indecisive, and we had called it in, so we got all these aircraft pushed to us, and then after 50 minutes of this recon platoon getting pinned down, and really, they were in a tough fight, then he decides, okay, I'll prove some fires. And instead of, the only B bullet, like outside my regular job that I did in the Marines, outside the operational forces, was out in Yuma, the Marine Corps' version of Top Gun, controlling aviation ordnance. And I was giving him my recommendations. Hey, now that we've delayed these guys, the enemy's within 34 meters. We can't use these certain munitions. And he dropped the heaviest munition, a 500-pound bomb, 34 meters away from our platoon, and then also fired these HIMARS rockets. They're 675-pound surface-fired rockets, and you can't drop these things within 180 meters. There's regulations. But he's told me, he said, Fred, I'm willing to sacrifice the lives of these Marines, and I need to make sure you will too on all future occasions. And the point is, when a leader says something that is and is giving you an order that's an unlawful order, an officer has a duty to disobey. So there are certain incidences in the military when somebody's doing something that's illegal, immoral, and unethical. People have to stand up, and that's not just those in uniform. The American people need to realize and put some skin in the game and contact their members of Congress and say, hey, we elected you to represent us as our leader, and we cannot have this type of stuff going on. Right now, you, Chad, have seen what's going on in Ukraine, and the Russians they're really suffering from low morale, bad decisions coming from top down, and that can easily happen here in the United States if we continue to go down this path and making these decisions while we're not tested by. But China, there's countries right now that are building, amassing their forces: China, Iran, North Korea, Russia. And guess what? They're all doing exercises like we do exercises with our allies and partners they're doing the same thing. China and Russia are doing exercises together constantly. So uh, when we're weak and perceived weak, we're going to get tested, and we have to have the best, but we also have to have checks and balances. Sorry for the
Yeah,
sermon.
no, I seen the same thing, and it crossed my mind while I'm there in Ukraine, and seeing not only just a smaller military, but a civilian force that just wants to defend their homeland. Women that are fighting, and farmers, and store owners, and just everybody who's getting out there and fighting, and actually beating a world superpower because of the morale difference. I mean, the Russian troops have no will to fight. And they have more equipment, they have more resources, but they have no will to fight, and the difference in there. And I'm like thinking, wow, if America ends up in this position to where, yeah, we have the most powerful military in the world, but if we're ever put in a position to where our government puts us to where we don't have a will to fight, I mean, we could be right there where the Russians are. And I mean, obviously in this case, the Russians are the bad guys, but I mean, it was definitely has been a lesson in warfare for me to see this, because I thought, like everyone else thought, that in 48 hours Russia would just dominate Ukraine.
Yes.
And that's not only did that not happen, but we're seeing them on their heels, and they're having to get more and more desperate and more radical just to try to win. And that's why we're seeing the violence on civilians that we're seeing, while we're there.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's definitely a lesson in warfare, and something that everyone should be paying attention to. So,
Yep. Especially when we've compromised ourselves economically, and we're depending on China so much that some people don't want to say anything until it's too late. And I live here in Hawaii. I know you guys have some of your team there in Texas. They're not going to attack our strong point there in Texas, but it's happened here before. Less than 100 years ago with the Japanese. People need to understand that this can and will happen again. China's building. They built literally, pillboxes, and they made preparations over 30 years before the attack in 1941 here in Hawaii. But that has to be in our brain, that we're not so strong that somebody can just that they can't attack us, and they can, and they likely will. It's when we're going to be less prepared. And I think that America thinks this just wouldn't happen in the homeland. Got to get that out of our minds.
yeah, I agree. Well, Fred, is the book available on pre-order yet? Or if not, when will it be?
Chad, it is. You can go on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com, search A Few Bad Men, and you can order it. This is the cover. I don't even have a copy. This is just a decoy. But
Great cover.
Yeah, they can order it right now. It's also on audio version. And if some Marines want to direct message me, I said there's pictures. I'll send you the 8 primary colors, and you can color those pictures for those of us that like to use crayons.
Well, and besides the book, where can people follow you, keep up with you?
Okay, on YouTube, they can go and type in Fred Galvin, The Commando Show, and they will be able to see several archived videos, and I'm going to be putting out some new content there as well.
Right on. Well, Fred, it's great having you on. Like I said, I think a lot of people that listen to this show will be reading your book, and I'll finish it up myself, and I want to get behind it, because I think it's a message everyone needs to hear. So definitely appreciate you, and I look forward to being in touch more.
Yes, thank you very much, Chad. I appreciate it, and thank you for your service and what you've done for our veterans.
Yes, sir. God bless. Till next time, guys.